Vicky Beeching, the British singer who's one of the biggest stars of America's Christian rock scene, says she's gay. It goes against everything her faith had instructed. She says she lived in shame and isolation. She struggled with her sexuality since the age of 13, but in the end she couldn't carry on living a lie. It could have a devastating impact on her career in a community that thinks that homosexuality is a sin which can be cured. Well, in a moment we'll speak to her live, but first, in her own words, she explains why she's determined to be part of change within the church itself.
Vicky Beeching.
Great is the glory of the Lord, and I will sing with all my heart unto you, Lord Almighty. Great is your glory, Lord.
I would say it's something I've thought about every single day since the age of 13, and now I'm 35, which is pretty crazy to think about just how much of a life has been spent pondering that. But I think for me it was so difficult because I love the church. One of the classic stories usually used to talk about it is one of the Old Testament stories about two cities called Sodom and Gomorrah, where God kind of rained down fire and judged these cities. And I do remember those things were taught in Sunday school with quite graphic pictures. You know, that really was quite harrowing. And I suppose those kind of things don't really leave you as you become a teenager. You think back to those Sunday school memories and think, gosh, you know, this is the thing they talked about at Sunday school. This is scary. I must be a really bad person.
Isaiah 46, verses 3 and 4. Even when you are old, I will be the same. Even when your hair has turned grey, I will take care of you.
I've always kept a diary since I was really little, and I've noticed looking back at my diaries that they all had private, keep out, top secret written on them. It's quite painful actually to see the things I was struggling with and just how fractured I was, and the constant apologies I would make to God. When I was 13, I was just beside myself, sobbing into my bedroom carpet, saying to God, you know, you've got to take my life away. I can't actually handle this. Like, I can't be a Christian and gay. These things don't work in my family, in my universe, in my world. At one point when I was 15 or 16, I was at a conference and they said people should come forwards if they were struggling with something that they couldn't cope with. They wanted to be free from. And so I went forwards at this meeting and had people lay hands on me and pray very loudly and shout and tell the devil to, you know, get out. And that, I think, can really fracture you as a teenager, sort of psychologically fracture you and make you think, actually, the feelings I'm having aren't my feelings, they're demonic feelings or the devil's feelings inside me. The place I felt most happy, the place I felt most at home was actually on an airplane, 30,000 feet up. So I actually felt a lot of peace when I was flying because I felt like we were all in between, and in between was easy. But when I landed, there was never really a sense of home. I really turned to, I think, trying to be the perfect student and the perfect Christian to try and make up for it. Made sure I got straight A's, made sure I got into Oxford. After Oxford, I got signed to EMI, which required a move to Nashville.
Please greet Vicky Beeching.
I will sing with all my heart unto you, Lord.
So my time in America was largely spent in the Bible Belt.
You're my God, you're altogether lovely.
Which, as you can imagine, is an incredibly conservative culture. I was imagining when I moved to America it would be slightly more open-minded, and it actually felt like really going back in time. So suddenly I found myself in an environment that was even less conducive to me coming to terms with my sexuality, and there were billboards everywhere on the highways, you know, offering conversion therapy, reparative therapy to fix people. I am afraid because my livelihood has been based on working within that conservative Christian culture. My life has been about writing these songs that the church sings. They pay royalties when they sing them, and that pays my rent and puts food on the table. So once I've spoken out about this, I doubt very much whether those churches will sing those songs. If one of those teenagers could just see more people standing up and saying, actually, it's okay. You know, the Bible, which I love and I've studied in depth, you know, it doesn't actually say what we think it says about human sexuality. We've got a lot of it wrong. And I just hope there can be a message of hope to those young people to be who they are, to know that that's okay and that God loves them exactly the way they are.
I'm joined in the studio now by Vicky Beeching herself, and from Springfield, Massachusetts, by the evangelical pastor Scott Lively, a man fiercely critical of homosexuality in the past and who advised the Ugandan government on their recent anti-homosexuality bill. But first to you, Vicky. I mean, there are so many whys watching your film. Why didn't you turn against the church? Why did you live in Nashville, the buckle of the Bible Belt, for 8 years? And why have you spoken out now?
It does probably seem like quite a mystery to most people, I guess. Yeah. A lot of people would think that actually coming out as a gay person is almost quite blasé in this day and age. But I think I wanted to tell my story just to remind people that there are still pockets of the world, like religion, and I think also places like sport, where it still is a really big deal to speak out about sexuality, and it comes with massive repercussions.
And just tell us a little bit about these repercussions.
I think partially it's about wondering if your community is going to crumble, if people are going to stop phoning, kind of treat you like you've become awkward because there's something about you that they don't agree with and they don't know how to address. And then also for me, as someone who works in Christian ministry and has had a long career in Christian music, I mean, all of those people tend towards the conservative view, so it just makes me feel like I probably need to find a new livelihood.
And it must have been really strange for you to be in a place like Nashville, Tennessee, to give a concert in front of a huge audience of people who loved you and applauded you, lots of adulation. At the same time, you knew that if you had come out to them in public on that stage, they would have had a rather different opinion.
I think that was the thing that really crushed me in the end, that sense that what if people knew? And it wasn't something I was living out, it wasn't something I was acting on, it was just something I knew that was true about myself. And it was just something I thought about every single day. And even in my close friendships, I wondered that. I felt this sort of isolation had grown around me, because with all of these close Christian friends, I thought, well, what if they knew that this is really the way that I'm wired, who I am inside? Would they still be my friends? So it felt like my whole world really was kind of built on quite thin ice.
And how supportive has your family been in all this?
They've been great. I talked to my parents at Easter. And
this Easter?
Yeah, and they've been really, really loving and wonderful. In terms of believing what the Bible says, they would take a more traditional line, but at the same time as not agreeing with my theology, they love me unconditionally. And I think that's, to me, that's a great model, that you don't have to agree with somebody entirely to be able to love them.
So this has not diminished your faith in any way?
No, I think a lot of people have wondered why I didn't leave the church, but actually my faith is stronger than it's ever been. I love the church. I want to be part of the change within that. I don't think the solution is to walk away. I think the solution is to stay in the middle of it and try and bring positive hope.
Well, let's turn to Scott Lively in Massachusetts. Reverend Lively, you heard Vicky Beeching there. I mean, do you have any sympathy for her views? Has it changed your views towards homosexuality at all?
Well, I have a lot of sympathy toward Vicky herself. My sister was a lesbian, and in fact, I was the person that she came out to as a teenager, and I was the person that she turned to later when lesbianism had almost destroyed her, and she became a Christian and overcame lesbianism. And so I have a lot of sympathy for people who struggle with the challenge that Vicky is facing, and I'm very sorry to hear that she has given in to the lie that she is a homosexual, and instead of continuing to try to overcome the challenge that is in her life. All of us have challenges.
Vicky, let's hear your response to that. Excuse me for interrupting you. Let's hear your response. You're living a lie, according to you. You've given into a lie.
That is very much what I've been raised to believe, and I think psychologically that's actually very damaging for people, because it makes you feel like you're fighting against yourself. And I think many conservative Christians, maybe Scott too, would agree that it's actually a kind of demonic thing. So you begin to look within yourself thinking, actually these feelings are not only bad, but I'm being controlled by the devil. I mean, that's what I was told in Nashville. So I think actually it's about coming to terms with who you are and realizing we need to accept our sexual orientation as a God-given gift, rather than making it sound like it's a battle between who you're made to be and who you are.
Reverend Lively, is Vicky being controlled by the devil?
Well, all of us struggle with various different types of temptations. It's part of human life. Christians face these same temptations. There's no difference between the challenges that we have or anyone else in the world has. But we are called to rise above the temptations and to follow the guidance of God. He gave very, very clear, explicit instructions about sexuality. He established the one flesh paradigm in Genesis 1:27 and 2:24, that therefore shall a man leave his family and cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And all sexual activity outside of that covenant that he's established for us to have between one man and one woman is illicit and wrong. And just because you have temptations, strong temptations, to go outside of that bond, that doesn't legitimize them. I'm a married man. I've been married for 33 years. But being a man, I'm attracted to women other than my wife. But I've never given into those temptations.
It's a very different situation,
and all I'm asking
though. Let
Vicky
me just
and
ask you one
anyone else
question.
struggling with homosexuality to do.
If you're a straight person, and people use this argument on me a lot, at least today, and when I've argued this before just as a theologian, if you're a straight person and you say, actually, it's wrong for me as a Christian to have sex outside of marriage, so I'm going to commit to one person of the same sex, that actually gives you the hope of having a life partner, of finding one person and committing to them. But if you're saying that a Christian gay person actually can't have sex outside of that heterosexual paradigm at all,
Well,
it means there's no hope
Vicky.
for them to have a partner.
It's a false premise. There's no such thing as a gay person.
So you do not think that people are born gay?
It's an identity you adopt.
So how come I can't change the way I
Absolutely
feel?
not.
I believe
Absolutely
God has
not.
made me the way that he's made me. It's taken
Well-
me 35 years to come to terms with that, and I believe it's actually part of my God-wired identity.
Vicky, God has the power to help you to overcome your homosexual inclinations.
And that kind of teaching has been so damaging to me, and it damages so many people. I think it's one of those things that can really psychologically scar people.
Vicky, you keep referring to psychology rather than to spirituality. I think that's your problem. You have adopted the thinking of the world, including the idea
like science,
that,
you mean?
That being criticized
So
damages
science
you.
is not God ordained.
Well,
God didn't
no,
give us a brain and intellect.
True science and biblical theology are perfectly consistent. There's
So
nothing
psychology for you
inconsistent
does
about
not
science
reflect God's
and
intellect
religion.
in us as humans. Because I would say that actually psychology is extremely...
What I'm saying
is that part of what it means to be human is to have a brain and to be intelligent, and God gave us that ability. So I think that the studies into sexuality are very much important.
Don't you care what God thinks, Vicky?
I do, and that is actually why I'm taking this step
Vicky, don't
today,
you
so
care
that young
what God
people
thinks?
don't have to listen to the kind of teaching that you peddle, because it damaged...
Can I just butt in very quickly and ask you a question, Reverend Lively? You helped the Ugandan government draft an anti-homosexuality law that includes the death penalty.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
What does Vicky deserve some
I've
sort
been
of
on your
punishment
show
according
talking
to
about that
your laws?
before. That's a lie.
It's a lie.
But that's a lie. I'm not going to respond to it. My position is the biblical one, that God created all human beings,
There are many
every single
biblical
person on this
perspectives,
planet.
though. I think that has to
is
be
either
acknowledged,
male.
at least on this program. I'm doing a PhD in theology. There are many ways you can read the Bible. I love the Bible with all my heart. It's my favorite book.
I have a PhD myself, and
Good.
I also have
and we can
a
agree
doctorate of law.
disagree on the
I
fact
know
that
the
those texts
Bible
can be read
inside
in
and out.
different ways. There are different
there
ways.
are some
for
things
example,
that
there
are
are different,
ambiguous in the Scripture.
There are different ways to read the Scriptures on women, for example. We agree to
Let me
disagree on
finish my
that.
sentence, please.
Let me ask
I
you
let
one
you
last.
talk.
Let me ask you one last
You had the whole
question.
setup piece, and you've had
But
plenty of
before-
time to talk. Let me answer the question.
Reverend Lively, you've both had an ample opportunity. Let me ask you one final question, Reverend Lively. Have you ever had any homosexual thoughts
Yes.
yourself?
No, fortunately for me, I have never experienced same-sex attraction, but I understand people that have. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. That was my challenge. I had temptations to indulge in substances of various kinds, and by the grace of God, I surrendered my life to Jesus Christ, and I was healed and delivered from that. Just as many of my friends have been, whose temptation was homosexuality. I have many ex-gay friends, and Vicky, you do not need to succumb to the flesh. You can overcome that. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 9
Okay, we're going to
Everyone
have
should
to leave
read
it there.
that
We've run out of time. Fascinating stuff. Watching you both, listening to you both. Thank you very much, Reverend. Thank you very much, Vicky Beeching. Obesity, not just bad.